welcome to the program. Well, as we promised you, today we have a citizen of Nevis. She traveled here primarily to do this program. Her name is Miss Carlyn Lawrence, and she's a former head of the Nevis Waste Management Company. And she's here to talk about her book. First of all, she's an author of a children's book that just came out. And secondly, she's here to talk about the political climate in Nevis, which seems to have taken a turn for the worse since the new government came in. It seems that there's some political retribution going on over there, where people who are thought to have voted for the party that's currently out of power, the opposition, they seem to be losing jobs and things like that. As I said, seem to be, because you can't prove, but usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And when 200 people lose their job, all of a sudden you have to take a keen look and see exactly what's going on. So let me introduce Miss Carlyn Lawrence, and welcome to St. Martin. Welcome to the program. And by the way, she also has connections here to St. Martin, because those of you that know him, he is Mr. Newton Hazel, and of course he lives in the States now, but he's long known here in St. Martin, well known, the Hazel family, and of course Yorks and the other family, people that lived here a long time or from here would know the Hazel family, and Newton in particular. Newton is her father, and she is here again, kind of returning home, because she lived on St. Martin for a while back when. And we're going to talk a bit about what she's doing now, what's happening with politics in Nevis, and so on and so forth. So, Carlyn, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm thanking you for having me. Enjoying St. Martin, and so far, I'm enjoying meeting you, Lloyd.
Okay.
So.
Yes.
So don't change that.
Yes, the feeling is mutual. The feeling is mutual. And, of course, you came here primarily to talk about the situation in Nevis, but also your book, which just came out, and I was reading a little about it on Facebook.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, it's a project that I took on, and just printed about 3 days ago, just published, and it's called Soldier, Crab, Monkey, and All Are We. Mm-hmm. And it's a children's storybook. It has 5 short stories in it. Okay. Published by Arthur House Publishers.
And Nevis?
In the States.
In the States, okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so it's available online. The electronic versions, like for your Kindle and Nook tablets and so on, should be available by Tuesday or so. But persons who wish to have a hard copy can go online. They can go on my webpage, Carlyn Lawrence, and there's a link there that leads you to the Arthur House bookstore, or you can search online for arthurhousebooks.com. Okay. Or it's on Amazon already too, but the searches, you would have to either search the title of the book or the author's name or children's fiction books. But it's 5 short stories telling you about life in Nevis long ago. There's a short story about the Nevisian donkey. Nevisians would know that, years ago when I was a girl, for example, donkeys were the mode of transportation.
Okay, here too on St. Martin.
Okay, so, and we have a huge population of wild donkeys even today. Yeah? Yeah, so, because now we've changed our mode of transportation, so they are just wild. They're now a nuisance. Okay. But there was a time when if you lost your donkey, you went to look for your donkey. It was like you lost your car. Yes. So there's a story about that. There's a story about a little boy who made soldier crabs his pets. Mm-hmm. And then there are stories like granny stories, folklore stories in there. So I think it has appeal for locally, regionally, and internationally. Mm-hmm. I think it can sell Nevis tourist-wise, and it can sell the region tourist-wise, because we have so much in common here in the Caribbean. So I think it's relatable for all of our people. And like I say, it's hot off the press, so hopefully I don't even have my own hard copy in my hand as yet.
Okay.
Those are being shipped to me. So as soon as I get my copies, I'll come back.
Sure.
And if you'll have me on your show again,
okay, yes.
then I could introduce it better.
Yes, yeah. We could talk more about it.
Yes.
And you can also let folks know where they can pick up a copy and so on. You're going to bring some over here,
right?
And put in the bookstores here and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm proud of that, and I hope that people would like it and appreciate it.
Yes.
I expect it to.
Well, definitely, I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
And
I think so.
Can we expect more books in the future?
I think so. Maybe not children's books, but you never know. When God inspiring, what will enter your spirit. And so the first thing I wrote in this book was a story about the donkeys, and it kind of sounded poetic to me. But then I was like, it doesn't rhyme. And although poems don't have to rhyme, and then I had it sitting there for a while. I had it sitting there for years, actually.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then, I decided, why not take this a step further and do something else? And so I'm publishing at a great time, I think, because having, as you mentioned, recently lost my job. At least, and usually when persons lose their job, it's not a happy time.
No, definitely not.
It's a sad time.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that at least that I have that little happy note there that I can bounce off of that. I've published a book and it's available, and so there's a little good news still inside.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we want to wish you all the best with that. Moving over to our next topic, the politics of Nevis. Maybe you can bring us up to speed as to what Nevis is in terms of the world and their connection with St. Kitts, and maybe just a little bit about the general politics of Nevis and who is in power now, and the situation in Nevis is that not being independent, you have a premier, and the prime minister comes out of St. Kitts.
Right, but St. Kitts and Nevis together is a country.
It's a country,
It's an independent country. Yes, so it's a twin island federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, but Nevis also has an island administration that oversees more directly the administration of the island of Nevis. But then we also have like a federal government, which the government in St. Kitts serve as the federal government for Nevis.
Okay.
Right? So Nevis by itself is not a country.
It's not a country.
Correct. But St. Kitts Nevis, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis now is a country, the Prime Minister being Dr. Denzel Douglas. And in Nevis we have a Premier who is Mr. Vance Amory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, does Nevis have ministers on their own, or is it?
Yes, we have our own island ministers. So we vote for our local island election, and then there's also a federal election, which involves now electing the federal government, which involves the prime minister. So
and the federal ministers.
Yeah.
Or does Nevis have a?
We have three candidates.
Three candidates for minister.
Nevis that would make up the federal government.
Okay.
Right? But the issue today is more directly related to the Nevis Island government. I don't know if you're familiar with Antigua and Barbuda. Like they have an island assembly thing for Barbuda.
Yes.
Although they're a country collectively. It's kind of similar. Where we have two islands, but it's one country. So you're really a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Oh, okay.
Even though, human beings always have that need, I guess, for their identity, their individual. Oh, I'm from Nevis, or I'm from St. Kitts.
Yes.
But really, if you look at the big picture, we're really from St. Kitts and Nevis. Yes.
And keeping history in mind, going back a bit, Anguilla was a part of that confederation.
Once upon a time. Yes.
So it was St. Kitts, Nevis, and
Anguilla. Yeah.
Okay.
And St. Kitts, Nevis gained independence 1983.
Okay.
Yes.
And
so
Anguilla
had left some time before. I don't recall what year. But we just celebrated our 30th year of independence in September.
Okay.
Yes.
Congratulations on that.
You.
Yes. Well, coming more now to the politics of Nevis and what seems to be political retribution taking place. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your own particular situation, and maybe you can. I read some newspapers that you brought for me mm-hmm. about what's taking place there, and I see that almost 200 people have lost their jobs since the new government. I believe it's
CCM.
CCM.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The Nevis Island Administration, known as the NIA, there are two main parties in Nevis, the CCM and the NRP. CCM means Concerned Citizen Movement, and NRP, the NRP is the Nevis Reformation Party. In January of last year, the 22nd, we had elections, and the CCM won the government. So they are now leading the Nevis Island Administration, and that's headed by Mr. Vance Amory.
Okay.
So now the NRP is now the opposition, and the CCM is now leading the island government.
Okay.
So since January 22nd, 2013, since the government changed, there have been a number of persons who have lost their employment, have lost their jobs. Upwards of close to 200 persons. Mm-hmm. I don't know the exact number, but I do know it's more than 150.
Yes.
I don't know if it has hit the 200 mark yet, but I recently became a part of that number. Correct. Mm-hmm. So, and I try to pay attention to what's going on at home. I try to pay attention to the news when the government change, when the leaders talk. I try to listen. I listen to what the CCM would put out in the media, and I would listen to what the NRP would put out in the media as well. And when the firing started, one of the things that they explained was that they were persons who were already over a certain age. I think it was 55, because you can go into early retirement at age 55.
Okay.
And so persons who were over 55, they say that they were already collecting their pension, and so they were trying to save monies, and so they were going to lay off some of those persons. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the reasons mm-hmm. that initially was given.
And that was supposed to be a belt-tightening measure?
Yes, that's what
they said.
That's what was said, yes. So, and then they talked about persons who had already retired and gone back into the system. So they also alluded to persons who they claim were being paid, but were not actually going out to work. So, they didn't present, to my knowledge, any proof of these claims. They didn't go out and say, well, Mr. X, Mr. O, or Mrs. O are known to not be collecting salaries and not actually going out to work. But mm-hmm. having said all that, my own story is that I don't fall into any of those categories. Mm-hmm. I'm not over 55, and I go out to work every day. And the type of work I did, being the general manager of the Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority, put me in the public eye. So the entire island would see the effectiveness or the results of me being on the job.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Correct? So I don't fall into any other category. So, of course, you have to now question the reason behind all these people losing their jobs. There was an article that came out in one of the papers I brought you, and there was a young man there telling his story as well, and he's only 38. So
yes, right,
way below the 55 age of retiring, and in his story, if you remember, he is saying that when he lost his job, let's say he lost his job the Monday, by the time he went back up there to have some forms filled out the Tuesday, there was somebody else in his job.
Yes.
Right, so they made him redundant, claiming that he was no longer needed, the company no longer needed his service, but then changed the job title now just to appear to be
a different job.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they changed the job title, but the duties and everything remain the same. And that is what the information that he gave to the newspaper. Mm-hmm. So you really have to question what's going on, because Nevis is a small place. The island is maybe a little bigger than St. Martin, 36 square miles, but the population is a lot less. Being generous with the numbers, 12,000.
12,000, okay.
Yeah. So it's small, everybody knows everyone, and so you can look at the people who've been terminated from their jobs and see there are people who are thought to be supporters of the opposition.
Oh, okay.
So that in itself make you have to question, because when you have a government in place, they're supposed to represent all the people, even the people who did not vote for them or who they believe did not vote for them. You're supposed to represent all the people. So I really have issue with the fact that of what is happening, not just to me, but to other folks. You can't just be concerned about yourself alone, I think. And I realize we're living in a world where people are very self-centered. It's me, myself, and I. If it doesn't happen to me, then I don't concern myself with it. But we claim to be Christians. We claim to be Christian nation and things like that. And when you see a lady that is the head of her household and she's just cleaning a government office and she's going to be terminated, you really have to be concerned. You cannot carry on with your own life and feel good knowing that so many persons in that category would have lost their job. And even from my own situation as well. I mean, I am head of household. Yeah. And you
have a mortgage.
And I have a mortgage. So, and since the change of government, just a little over a year ago, there hasn't been any new businesses opening. There's been no new job creation, no stimulation in the private sector.
Hotels, nothing like that.
None. So where do you go? Because the government is now saying to me, we don't want you to work for us. You did a good job, yes, because that's evident. In my situation, I can tell my story with detail, right? We don't want you to work for government anymore. And we haven't created anything new in the private sector. So what do I do? Where do I go?
Yeah. The only recourse you have is to leave the island, go abroad and find a job there in order to take care, but that's really uprooting you. And I read in the papers that the paper itself is likened this whole situation to a form of apartheid, from really discrimination against one sector of people. And I like the way you put it. You said that it seems that now they're creating two classes of people: those that have, and now those that have not, in terms of jobs and situations like that, purely on a political level. Now, I've known a little bit about that situation because years ago I worked with a gentleman from St. Kitts, Mr. Erasmus Williams. He is now the press secretary for Denzel Douglas. He was the editor of the Chronicle newspaper along with me when I worked with there. And the stories that he told me and the reasons why he was now working in St. Martin and before that in the British Virgin Islands is that the party that Denzel Douglas had lost power and the new party came in, and then after that he lost his job and he was politically victimized too. He couldn't get a job anyway. He had to leave and go to Nevis, take his family, and then after that come to St. Martin. And the minute Denzel Douglas went back to power, he went back to St. Kitts, and now he's press secretary again. So that tells me a little bit of the political atmosphere in St. Kitts and Nevis, and now I'm hearing it firsthand from you in Nevis in particular, and it's really disheartening. It
is, and I think, though, to be fair, when a government change, you always see some positions that would become vacant.
Yes.
You run for office, you would want your commissioners, your permanent secretaries, perhaps to be people that are right there with you and carry your ideals. But we've never seen anything like this that we're seeing, at least not in my lifetime. I haven't seen it. Where it's across the whole spectrum of the workforce, where, if somebody new went into power tomorrow and You will take your chief of staff as being somebody. You'll change the chief of staff from the guy that just left.
Yes.
And put your own chief of staff there, for example. If it was 10 persons and okay, these were the commissioners, you might have said, okay, that's normal in politics around the world. But when you see ordinary people being victimized, I think that more of us have to speak out.
Yes.
And I know because it's also creating a climate of fear. I can't say that I am not concerned, but I feel that when fear pushes me, I have to push back.
Yes.
You're seeing, like I mentioned, people who clean offices. You're seeing people there was a program where you had the young fellas cleaning the sides of the road, cutting the bushes and keeping the roadsides, the curbside clean and stuff. You're seeing that even those persons were sent home. Ordinary secretaries in jobs.
The other person who spoke out, he was a driver.
A driver?
Yeah.
38 years old, I think the story said. Losing his job. And
with a family.
Right. And so, again, and he's a division, and I mean, so am I, but persons may look at me, oh, she lived abroad before, so let her just go back. And I resent that as well, because
you lived in St. Croix
I lived in St. Croix. My mom migrated to St. Croix.
When you were a child?
When I was a child.
Yeah.
And so therefore, as a child, around 9, she brought me to join the family there. But she was in charge of me then.
Yeah.
But what I have to remind folks is that in 1996, as an adult, off of my own will and decision, returned to Nevis.
Yes.
And I've been there since 1996, living and working and enjoying life. And I am a citizen, and I should be able to live and work and enjoy life.
In your own country?
In my own country.
Of course.
I really resent when folks say, well, you could go back. You could go back to St. Croix, you could go to some place.
To St. Martin.
Yeah, I could come to St. Martin because I have roots here as well. And yes, but why?
Yeah,
why am I being forced to do that? And so I really don't like that thinking. And one of the other things that is being said at home as well is I was employed on a contract.
On a contract.
Right. So I was not a civil servant. And so some folks are, they didn't fire her. Her contract expired. But contracts can be renewed.
Of course. And that's normally the way it's done.
Exactly.
Especially if you're doing a good job.
Right. And you haven't indicated to me in writing or even verbally that you were not satisfied with what I was doing with my performance and so on. So to terminate the contract just because now it is expired it doesn't change the fact that I'm unemployed.
Yes.
So my contract has expired before. This is not the first time. When the NRP party was in government, I started working with them in 2007 on a 2-year contract. And when it expired, the contract has stipulation and clauses that if I'm interested, I should write to them by the 1st of November to indicate that I want. So basically it's giving who they have, the manager that they have, the first preference at the job, basically. And so over the years I've done that, and my contract would be renewed. This is the first time I'm coming up for renewal where it's turned down and without reason.
Okay.
Without reason.
We're talking with Miss Carlyn Lawrence. She is from Nevis, as you would have heard, with roots here in St. Martin and also in St. Croix, I would imagine. And she's here to talk about the political victimization that seems to be going on Nevis, and also to share her personal story as well as the book that she's just written. We're at the bottom of the hour now. We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll include your phone calls. I let you know last week, and I also put it on my Facebook that she would be here, so I imagine we would have a lot of Nevisians listening. Perhaps you would like to call and maybe state your particular situation, maybe even tell why you're here in St. Martin right now as opposed to living in Nevis. And, of course, you can also, ask Carlyn any particular questions as to what is taking place here or there in Nevis. So When you come back, we'll give you the numbers. Also, those of you that are listening in St. Kitts, I would imagine that you are tuned in right now. We want to shout out to you, the folks there on St. Kitts and Nevis. And there's the radio station that's carrying it over there. And what's that
Freedom
station?
FM, I believe.
Freedom FM?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what on the radio dial? 92?
Yeah, I don't know the frequency, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yes, okay. Well, we'll try to get that during the break, and we'll give it to you on the other side. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Yeah, hello?
Hey, Fernando, this is Voss. All the way, Margaret, and my credit almost done. Call me back now.
Hey, don't even try that.
Okay, welcome back. We are talking with Miss Carlyn Lawrence. She is from Nevis, and the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, of course. And she is here to talk about her particular situation, as well as the situation of at least 200 people in Nevis that have lost their jobs recently due to what seems to be political victimization on the current party. Those of you that may have a keen interest, like if you're from Nevis or St. Kitts or whatever, and you might have an interest in the situation that's going on over there, you can call us. The numbers are 54-32141, 54-22580, 54-22764. We have a call on the line right now. We're going to go directly to that. Good morning, you're on the air.
Carlyn. One thing sure, it's very nice to hear your voice again. I needn't to tell you, for you know it yourself, that your brother is married to my oldest daughter. You know all that yourself.
Oh, Mr. Lake.
And
yes, Mr. Lake.
coming from your mother's trait, you're also related with my wife. So there you have a double first cousin and all that kind of a thing.
That's right.
It's nice to hear you, and keep on the good work concerning your poetry, your book, and whatever you endeavor to do. And for one thing sure, I know that the kind of a person that you are, being of such a qualified caliber, that, hey, you can't keep a good person, especially a good woman, love. So keep on, Carlyn. Have courage.
Thank you.
And keep trusting in God. For I know you believe in God.
Okay. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
Okay, we have, I think, another call coming. Okay. Again, for those of you listening that want to call, the numbers are 54-32141, 54-22580, 54-22764. You were trained for this job, the solid waste management, to manage this job. This is not just any old job. This is a scientific job that you have to know what to do with the solid waste, the garbage, and things like that. You went to Japan, I've read in the article, to receive your training.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I have a lot, maybe over 20 years of experience in management. I've managed companies on Nevis and also in St. Croix. And so I have the management experience, and also I got the training in Japan specific to waste management from funding from a program called JICA. And myself and some other colleagues from around the region had spent that time there. It was a wonderful experience. The Japanese have made a lot of advances in waste management, and we all were able to take back what we learned to our individual islands and put it into practice.
Okay. We have a call on the line. Good morning, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, and how are you?
Okay.
My name is the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, and I'm here listening to your program with keen interest. And I want to first of all thank you for giving Ms. Lawrence an opportunity to express her democratic right and freedom of speech that I must commend you on.
Thank you.
But I have a question for Ms. Lawrence. She just said that she had a managerial experience and worked at other companies here in Nevis. Is she still working at any of those companies?
No.
No,
okay.
She's not. Well, here is the thing. It's all good and fine for persons to, go out there and say that this administration, the Concerned Citizens Movement, which I'm happy to be a part of, is victimizing persons. But I want to establish a few things here this morning. We have met a very difficult situation in government once we got there the 22nd of January last year. And at least with any change of administration, we must admit there will be changes. And there have been some changes. But I've been hearing this thing about persons being victimized and fired. Let me establish, sir, the only persons in Nevis who were fired, and they were fired by the electorate in Nevis, and those are the persons who were in government. 5 members of Parliament at that time, which is the Honorable Joseph Parry, the Honorable Hensley Daniel, Carlyn Powell, Roberto Hector, Dwight Cozier. The advisors who they had, some of them did not return to work. Nobody fired them. They decided they were not going to come back to their jobs. So nobody had to do anything about them. But I must say also that everyone who was laid off up to this point in time have had all of their benefits paid to them, meaning they got their 2 months pay in lieu of their services being terminated. They also got all of their benefits that should have come with, that was due to them when their contracts or their services were no longer needed, because we just couldn't carry that payroll. As a matter of fact, let me say that as the person or the minister responsible for Nevis Housing and Land, there were 55 persons who were either terminated, laid off, or resigned from the corporation, that is the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, between the years 2006 and at least to December of 2012. That's 55. 20 went home in 2012 alone. What I'm saying is that the reason why I'm laying this out to you is because this whole notion that persons are being fired is a falsehood. And Barbados, for example, is going to be laying off 3,000 people this year. What are we going to say? Persons got fired in Barbados? No, the circumstances suggest that they have to be laid off because a country has to be run. The country's finances cannot handle the payroll that existed prior to us going into government. And they know that. We have some debts that we are coping with at this point in time. And you can stop me at any time, sir. You're the host.
Well,
I'm just laying out some things to you.
Yeah, but let me just...
At least some of the information that you're getting there is false.
Let me just ask you then, since you took power, you're talking about belt-tightening measures and laying off certain people because of maybe funding and things like that, financing. Have you been hiring extra people?
There have been some persons who have been hired in various areas that are not the areas that persons were laid off from. Now, the whole notion that NRP persons are being sent home is also false. As a matter of fact, let me put it this way. If we are only laying off NRP persons, those persons who are being laid off were not there prior to 2006. It means then that between 2006 and now, only NRP persons have been hired. Is that fair?
I don't know. Let me ask our guest here. Do you think that it's fair what's happening?
If what he's saying is accurate, then it wouldn't be fair, but what he's saying is not accurate. We had one lady laid off on the 27th of December who worked for the government for 24 years. From what I read in the media, she's 50 years old. And after 24 years of service in the ministry of the same minister on the telephone now, she was terminated. And yes, she would get her benefits, like you would get your pension or gratuity payments and whatnot. But speaking for myself, I would rather be working than going home with my gratuity. You know what I mean? Yeah. I would rather know that I have a steady source of income coming in, that I can meet my monthly obligations.
And what about the gentleman in the paper? And
okay.
I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. What about the gentleman? Before you go there. Before I have another question for you, I have another question. The gentleman in the paper, I would imagine that you've read that paper. He is 38 years old. He went home. He was sent home. And when he came back to pick up whatever he had to pick up, he found somebody else in his job doing the same thing that he was doing. How is that possible if you're laying him off?
That is absolutely incorrect, sir. The gentleman was a driver, a delivery guy. there are two persons who are doing the same work. As a matter of fact, that individual in question, his file would reflect the exact reason why, or the reasons why he was sent home, because he was not a worker that not even the worst of establishment would want to have. Government has their standards that they have to maintain as well, just as a company in the private sector. And I won't get into the reason and the rationale behind that particular gentleman, but his files, even prior to us getting into government, would have reflected the reasons, and those habits continued under this administration. Now, let's go back to the young lady who was sent home, or the lady that was sent home who would have worked there for 24 years. That is the only person, and I'm going to draw a reference here to you. That lady has been there, of course, since I think is the 90s, thereabout. But she would have worked under the first CCM administration, worked under the last administration, which was NRP, and now she would have spent just about a year there under the current administration. Now, she was the only person who would have been there since 1993 up until now. Yes, she would have had 24 years there, but I'm telling you, the circumstances at the corporation, we have $30 million of debt there to face. And I'm telling you that the previous administration would have gotten loans from Social Security. They would have had a loan in Trinidad as UTC. These are things I'm trying to paint the picture to you to show you how bleak things are at the corporation. The doors are still open, yes, but we're just barely holding on. We have had a net gain on our payroll there of just about $11,000 per month. When I say a net gain, it means that by letting off some of these folks, we're able to save $11,000 per month. Or else, the corporation is staring bankruptcy in its face. Now, the question is, what do you do? The situation was created not by us, because when the CCM left government in 2006, there was a buoyant situation there. Money was there. $10 million was left in an escrow at Scotiabank, which the previous administration, poof, it's gone, disappeared. You know, I'm not saying that person should not work, but let us be fair. There are other areas here in the country or in Nevis where persons can find gainful employment, which they are.
Okay,
thank you. Is that changes do come and changes has to happen.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And we appreciate your call. We will move back to our guest. Thank you so much for calling. Okay, again, the numbers are 5432141, 542-580, 5422764. I would imagine you know that particular minister?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And maybe you can...
Basically, he said a lot of things, but I'm not sure exactly what he said, because no one, he said, was there. The people who lost their job were people who the now opposition would have hired when they were in government, the NRP. Now, I pulled one case, and he's finding a way to cover that up. Mm-hmm. I am one of the persons. I was hired in 2007.
Could you hold that thought?
Sure.
And we're going to come back to that. We have a call. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Lloyd. I'm listening to the program. Miss Lawrence, I would like to say to you congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
I for sure would like to have a copy of it.
Thank you.
I just listened to the minister from Nevis, Carlyn, and we are grown-ups, we are adults, and big people should not be lying. What Ms. Lawrence is saying is so true. It's not only people from the government that was laid off. We have other people. Alexis is saying that they had millions of dollars in the book. But the other government, they can prove what they did with the money. Never in the history of Nevis children had the opportunity to go abroad. Over 100 and something children gone away to study, to be doctors, to be different, work in different fields. In the next 5 years or so, Nevis would have their own doctors. We wouldn't have to depend on anybody abroad. The government, the former government, they did their utmost best to achieve a dialysis machine for Nevis. Over a year now, this government went into government. I wouldn't even say went into power, because only God has power. But they went into government. And the dialysis machine is up there sitting down, doing nothing, and people dying every day. The former government, CCM government had St. Martin government so much money, millions of guilders for 2 patients was coming here on a dialysis machine. And when the NRP government went in, they tried to break it down. right? So I don't understand what this man is saying about millions of dollars and nobody's firing. It needs people, like Ms. Lawrence said, to speak out. Get up and stand up. Talk for your right. Don't let people fool you. Division's got to wake up. We have to wake up, right? I am living here for a number of years, right? And believe you me, if somebody says something about St. Martin, I defend it. And these people have to do the same. We have to do the same, right?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lawrence, and you keep on praying. God is going to bless you with your book.
Thank you.
You have a nice day.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So as I was saying, the person that managed solid waste prior to me had left. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't fired. He resigned, and so they were looking for someone. Currently, as I sit here, my job is being advertised, or what was my job is being advertised on radio mm-hmm. and in newspaper. So if you're cutting back, I mean, how are you going to run a department without a head? So it's a position that you need to have someone there. But basically what they're saying, they want to have one of their own supporters there. Mm-hmm. They're not looking for divisions who are capable of doing the job. They're just looking for their supporters, and it is wrong. And, mm-hmm. and that is why, I mean, I want to encourage our people, because we tend to be a passive people. We tend to allow things to happen to us and not say anything. I think it's time for us to speak out, because the number is so large now, and we see ordinary divisions, and we should not sit back and allow politics to divide us the way that it is now. Persons will vote for who they want to vote for. It's a democratic right, and I feel that my democratic rights are being threatened, whereas if I came out and publicly said I support the NRP, then somebody who is not NRP is going to victimize me, because they figure, oh, she can't work in that job. She can't be the head of that job, although she's doing a good job. Although there have been some firsts under my leadership that benefit the entire island, because I believe she didn't vote for us, she voted for NRP, she can't work. Take her out of that job, mm-hmm. you know, and that is what has been happening. I don't know, the minister alluded to debt. I don't know of a government anywhere in the world that does not have debt. And that is an excuse that they're throwing at us all the time, that the previous administration left such a mess in terms of finances that they have to do certain things to cut back. But I don't know that there's a government anywhere in this world that doesn't have debt.
Well, even the powerful United States of America is
absolutely
mired in debt.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, and like the caller just said, we saw what was being done, you know, in the previous administration. We could see that roads were being built. She spoke of the number of the dialysis machine. She spoke of the number of young persons that are abroad studying now. Since the government changed, even that, I understand, was taken back. So we have young people away studying, and while they are in the States or wherever studying, their scholarship was pulled from them while they are away studying. I mean, how do you take away a young person's dream that way? You
Especially
know,
when you've already invested.
They're already there. So to my mind, I felt that you should allow them to finish, allow them to complete what they're doing. And if you want to say, okay, we can't send any more right now, but they would just pull that rug from under a young person. And I mean, it's a case of,
if it's true what you're saying, it's a case of cutting off your nose to spike your face.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they pull the rug from under those young people that went away to study, they're actually pulling the rug from under Nevis itself.
Right.
You know, they're the private Nevis of doctors and lawyers and things like that, educated people.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take another call. Good morning, you're on the air. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning. Let me first of all say congratulations to Carlyn Lawrence, not only on the book, but on a magnificent job which she did at running the solid waste plant here in Nevis. I am Carlyle Powell, and I served as a minister in the previous administration. I live very close to the solid waste disposal site, and I know when things are going wrong at the site, because any experienced manager, and Carlyn is sitting there with you, any experienced manager would know that they have to cover the refuse when they bring it in. Since the government has changed here, the whole of the parish of St. John's and St. Paul inundated with flies. It means that they replaced Carlyn Lawrence, or they fired Carlyn Lawrence, terminated her for no good reason except that they believe that she's a supporter of the NRP. And they have not been able to do the job that Carlyn was doing over all these years from 2007. And when you speak in terms of debt, the minister who just called in is a stranger to the truth. Alexis Jeffers seems not to understand the truth from lies. I mean, with Carlyn Lawrence in the studio, I imagine that he would have taken his time to look at her situation, speak to the reasons why they dismissed her from her job. Since she was there, let her answer, put her on the spot. But he tiptoed around her and went to everybody else and spoke about debt. So let me tell you something about debt. The CCM administration previous to the NRP administration from 2006 borrowed $10 million from Social Security in St. Kitts, according to them, for housing and other projects. They paid not a cent to Social Security, having borrowed the $10 million. So he's talking about that. When NRP got into office, we had to sit down and negotiate with Social Security, who were not inclined to lend any more money since a Nevis government, and governments are continuous. A Nevis government had borrowed $10 million and refused to pay back any of the money. They are the people who went to Trinidad and borrowed money from Unit Trust, not the NRP. And for the money they borrowed from Unit Trust, they promised that they would put a 5-star fine dining restaurant at Bath, close to the Bath Hotel. Nobody could find the money they borrowed from Unit Trust for the restaurant. But nobody can find the restaurant. They're talking about the payroll is higher. They have saved $11,000 at housing. What a laugh. The payroll under the CCM now is significantly higher. They have hired people at exorbitant cost in terms of salary. All kinds of advisors, left, right, and center. People making $10,000, $11,000 a month. But let me give you a classic. We had an unfortunate fire in Nevis at the Treasury just last week. And guess what? They went and negotiated with the credit union so that they could put all of the offices who had to move in the credit union brand new building. I am told that the credit union offered them a price. Let us say the price was $25,000 a month. They said no, that was too high. But they are renting from 3 different locations. And I'm told that when you add up the 3 different locations, they will be paying about $40,000 a month. Why did they not accept the offer from credit union? Because one of their people said, no, I want a piece of the pie. So they had to satisfy him and his family. And now they're talking about victimizing people and talking about savings. What savings? These people cannot be believed. They campaigned against the land for debt swap and then went and secretly signed off the land for debt swap with an extra 109 acres of land at pennies. The NRP was going to give 238 acres of land. These people said not only 238, plus 109 acres of land, and did it secretly. In St. Kitts, Dr. Douglas went to Parliament. In Nevis, it was done in the dead of night. And the cabinet secretary said he knew nothing about it. We had to provide the evidence of his signature on the document.
Sir, before we run out of time, sir, before we run out of time,
the rest of your show, just not know that what you heard from that minister, he is a stranger to the truth.
Let me ask you, before we run out of time, I need to ask you, is there truth to the fact that almost 200 people have been laid off or fired?
I would suspect that the figure is in excess of 200 persons. And they say they are not replacing. As soon as they fire somebody on Friday, Monday morning, somebody is in that job. And oftentimes at a higher salary.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We are just about out of time, but we're going to have Ms. Carlyn back. And feel free, any of you listening on St. Kitts, Nevis, Opposition, or in Power, if you want to come to this program and state your case. You're invited. You have open invitation. I don't know anything about the policy or whether it's true or not, so I can just go from a neutral standpoint. Let me say neutral standpoint. So, Carlyn, thank you so much. I'll give you a second or so for closing statement.
All right. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be here again. I want to publicly take this opportunity to thank the NRP, the Joseph Parry administration in government, then that gave me the opportunity to serve the Nivision public. And I wish that I could have continued, but this is the fate that I find myself at.
Elections are every 5 years?